Finally, the elephant in the room. All of you know that we are debating the budget right now. Many people are calling it the great budget battle, but it really is a debate about our country's values and our priorities. It's a debate that asks some very important questions about our character as a nation. Are we a nation that invests in job creation and infrastructure and scientific research so we can continue to out-innovate and out-educate and out-build our competitors? Are we a nation that stands with our middle-class families and our workers? Are we a nation that invests in our children to help them succeed, that makes sure that they are all healthy and educated and prepared to pick up the reins of the country? Is that just a slogan for our country, or is it something we believe in? Well, I believe the answers to those questions are yes. We are that nation. We need to be. It's those values that made us great, and it's those priorities that will carry us into the next century stronger than ever before. Now, as you all know, that belief is not shared by everyone here in D.C. Over the last couple months, we've seen some pretty severe proposals from members of Congress that will slash funding for critical programs for children and families that everyone depends on across the country. In fact, a budget was passed by the House of Representatives that would slash nutrition programs for women and children by $747 million, prenatal care by $50 million, child care and development block grants by $39 million, and Head Start by $1 billion. That's the budget that went through the House. It would be absolutely devastating for children across America, and it doesn't make sense for our country's future. You know, our nation does have a budget deficit, but we also have a jobs deficit. We have an infrastructure deficit, and we certainly have an education and training deficit. And we need to cut spending responsibly and get our deficit under control, but we can't do it on the backs of the families and children who can afford it least, and we can't do it unless we face head-on all of our deficits, including funding for our children and their families. I believe that we should close the tax loopholes for the oil and gas companies before we cut programs for children's health care. I believe we should end the subsidies for private jets and yachts before we cut prenatal care. And I believe we should end the tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires before we end nutrition programs for low-income children and their mothers. It's just common sense to me, and I think it's common sense for most Americans. But I also believe it reflects our values as a nation. The House budget that I just talked about isn't just bad policy. The philosophy that underpins it is deeply misguided and radically short-sighted. It's a philosophy that values just slashing over building, that values ending programs and cutting families off over finding smart ways to help more people. And it's a philosophy that I believe fundamentally underestimates what our great nation is capable of. Think about it. Can you imagine our country today if this philosophy had reigned during FDR's administration? We would have no Social Security today, and generations of senior citizens would remain in poverty. Can you imagine if that philosophy had dominated the thinking during LBJ's administration? Medicare and Medicaid would never have been signed into law for the most vulnerable Americans. And can you imagine if my good friend Ted Kennedy had given in to that philosophy? Health care, civil rights, education, the laws and programs so many children and families depend on for protection and support today would never have been enacted. America is the great nation it is today, in part because we haven't taken the easy way out of our problems. We haven't just simply slashed, we invested. We haven't simply cut, we built. Time and again, our country came together and laid down a foundation for future generations to build on. And we did this because, as Americans, we care about the most vulnerable children and families among us. We provide support to those who need a helping hand. We don't just focus on today. We look to tomorrow. And we know that the budgets and programs aren't just numbers on a page. They are about real people with real lives, and they have a real impact now and for generations to come. I know you're all here because you understand the stakes. The publication's first focus is releasing today, lay them out in detail. And I want you to know, I really appreciate this award. It means a lot to me because it's about our future. And I look forward to working with all of you in the coming challenges ahead to make sure that our country doesn't forget how great we are and how great we can be if we do the right thing. Thank you very much.